Welcome to The Rundown, everyone. I'm Sunny Galt. I'm a messenger with United Network News, and we are the news division of United Network. And every week, our goal is to bring you the real news. And we do this through different stories that we release, right? We have in-depth news coverage of some of the headlines that you've seen out there, and our team works on that together to really bring those stories to life, to give you some more of the background information for that. We have local stories told through our field messengers. We talk about the restoration of our planet as we create what we call the new Earth. And we also have updates from the Global Intelligence Agency, which is the top intelligence agency out there. Now, before you freak out about that, because if you've done any digging, you know not to trust intelligence agencies. But this is an agency, and we've explained this before, that has essentially gone rogue about, I think, 10 or so years ago. And it is now on the side of the light, fighting to take down a lot of the bad things that are happening in our world. Our world doesn't make a lot of sense right now, right? And so we get reports from the GIA on what is going on. And that'll be more towards the end of this podcast episode. So what this podcast is all about is I like to go through the stories that we have shared with you guys throughout this past week and pick out some of the big ones and talk about them a little bit more. And this is great for those of you who may have missed an episode here or there, some of our content that we've put out, or maybe you just want to recap and kind of get an idea, like a refresher of everything that was discussed. Maybe you want to share UNN with someone who isn't already a member, because if you want instant access to all of our content, well, that is available through our membership plans. And you can go to our website at unitednetwork.earth and learn more about that. We do put all of our content out there about a week after our members get access to it. So if you're okay with waiting a week, then you can visit our YouTube channel. We also put stuff up on Rumble. Of course, we can't guarantee the content's going to stay up there. We try to make it as friendly as possible, but we got to give you guys the truth. And sometimes, most times, the best place to do that is on your own platform that you run, that you can control, because we don't want to be censored. On that note, let's get going. Here's the rundown of stories you may have missed this week on UNN. Okay, let's talk about our incredible field messengers, because you really are what United Network News is all about. The vision is to have people telling stories of what's going on in their own communities all around the world. Eventually, we're going to have lots of different video shows out there that are more specific to each area. Right now, we're trying to show you guys kind of the world view of what's happening, and we put it all, into one show. But eventually, soon enough, we'll have to break this down for you guys. We believe because you guys see what's happening in your own backyards and your own communities, that you're the best people to share those stories. And, just tell us what you see. Tell us what's going on. We all have these video cameras with pretty good microphones that are built into our quote unquote smartphones. And we all have the ability to do this. And so go out there, share what's going on in your community. You don't have to know anything about editing. If you send us the material, the footage, the video, the audio, we have an incredible production team that takes all of that and puts it together for you. And we may reach out to you just to clarify some stuff. It is a collaborative effort, but we don't want that to hold you back from getting the news, the information out there. So if you want more information on how to become a field messenger, you can go to our website. There's a section for field messengers. And we also have a Telegram group where you can suggest ideas. We can help you help you kind of figure out maybe what angle for the story, or you just do it completely on your own. Both are fantastic. So let's go over some of the stories that were submitted and also that ran. We had at least one story that had a really quick turnaround this week. Sometimes, it takes us a few weeks or longer to get the content out there, but we had one this week that was very, very timely. So let's start with Tom in Arizona. So that's a state in the United States. He shares with us a situation that happened in his area. This is involving Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, as we know it in the U.S. These agents reportedly showed up at a Tucson elementary school, and their intent was to arrest 3 students, you guys, at an elementary school. So what is that, 5th grade and below? And the reason they wanted to do that is because they had detained their parents earlier in the day for immigration purposes. And then they wanted to get the kids. Now, the school staff refused to let them in. The school board got involved, and Tom shares the whole story of what happened. But obviously, this is an incident. There was protesting and things going on in the community. And, we question exactly what went down there. At least Tom questions it. And what right they had to take the kids. There seems to be some things that aren't very humane going on there. All right, John out of Australia talks about 5G and surveillance. So he noticed that there were a bunch of 5G towers that had been installed in his area, and he kind of wondered why in a small town there'd be so many towers. So he talks about 15-minute cities, which we've discussed before, where you have communities that you pretty much have everything you need within 15 minutes. You don't have to travel. That may sound fantastic, but that's also a method of controlling people. Those 15-minute cities could very easily turn into, you can't go beyond the walls of your town, right? So we question things like that. And in this case, John was questioning how this could very easily turn into a technocratic society, which is something we don't really want. We love technology, but not when it's used to control people and essentially make them slaves. Not such a good thing. Chukwudi Kingsley out of Nigeria talks about a community, a local community there, where residents are tragically losing their homes. And this isn't because of like a natural disaster. The government is coming in and demolishing homes, perfectly good homes. It's destroying their way of life, and they're starting to protest, of course, as a result. I guess the government is coming in and saying they have like 7 days to vacate their homes. Some are really nice homes that are just being demolished for no reason. Like what's really going on there? Keza from Australia. This was the story, guys, that took us, I think the team had a really quick turnaround on that. So kudos to the production team out there. Keza does a great story about something that is tragic, but Keza puts a slightly different spin on it. So Cyclone Alfred, again, like I said, she's in Australia. Cyclone Alfred hit southeast Queensland more towards the beginning part of March, I think maybe the second week of March, and it resulted in a ton of damage. And this is in her area. So again, she's going outside. She's showing you literally how it's affecting her community, how it's affecting her yard. And of course, there were rivers that were flooded, road closures, lots of closures in general. She said shopping centers as well. She literally takes this in her backyard, to her garden, which is kind of in shambles at the time. And not only was this good for us to see, through Keza's eyes, but she also brought, I feel, a sense of hope to it. So it wasn't like all gloom and doom. Keza seems to be a very uplifting and encouraging person. And so she was all about rebuilding, and she just had this very uplifting look at something that someone else could look at this and just be like, oh, the horror. And yeah, natural, quote unquote, natural disasters aren't something to get excited about. But at the same time, it is all about perspective. So Keza, if you're listening, I really appreciated you were kind of, sharing your light through this story. Something that could have been very dark was turned into more of a story of, hey, we will turn this around. We will come together. We will rebuild. This is going to be okay. Agwumba Abasi, also out of Nigeria. I guess that's the second Nigeria story today. Awesome. That's very cool. Talks about a planting season that's going on right now. So for them, their rainy season is just around the corner. And so the farmers in this particular area, Unwana, I believe it's pronounced, are getting ready for their planting season. And he shows us kind of how they prepare for that. And that entails going out in smaller groups. I think he said for this community, there were 5 or 6 groups going out, but they're small groups. They're basically surveying the land and trying to figure out where they can plant and where they can farm. So this is just part of their process. It's kind of interesting to see. Lisa out of Georgia, which is a state in the U.S., talks about her learning garden. She gives us an update. This was really cool. Lisa did this completely on her own, and she wanted to create a community garden. Now, you could do this on your own, but it's always more fun when you include other people, especially if you can use this as a teaching opportunity. So Lisa got permission to build a community garden in the backyard of a church that happened to be near a middle school and an elementary school, so younger kids before they reach high school age. And they even went through, she was working with the schools. They built a trail so the kids could get from the school to, I guess they had to clear out some area, some wooded areas in order to actually get to where they were going to put this garden. And she said, since she started this project, she has taught 175 fourth and fifth graders how to create a community garden. And they essentially made a class out of it. This is solely because of her efforts. I know she came up against some pushback. It wasn't necessarily easy to do. It sounds like she had a lot of fun with it, but this just shows you the potential of what you can do as an individual. I know she had some things donated, so it wasn't something that cost a lot of money. She's obviously not paying for the land. But think of all of those 175 kids that just got this incredible education and this example of someone just doing something because they felt a calling to do it, an urge to do it. And, she answered the call and look what happened. It's pretty cool. Annette out of Canada takes us to the Ruby Creek Pathway. I did a little bit of digging on this because I hadn't heard of this area before. But Ruby Creek in Canada is very rich in culture and history. And right now, it features these really incredible tree carvings that talk about these stories of the Indigenous people that used to live there. She talks about this one story, kind of reminds me of like a Hansel and Gretel kind of story, a little bit scary, of the mosquito woman who, I guess if your kids go out, this is the tale, right? If your kids go out at night and, it's mosquito season or they're in an area with mosquitoes, that the mosquito woman can take them. That sounded pretty scary. But in general, they have these nice areas with these signs that talk about the history. As many of you guys know, and I think we're just now scratching the surface of this, the way we have treated Indigenous people, not just in Canada, the U.S. has done horrific things as well. It's just horrible. And I remember like in middle school, learning about some stuff, but it's never presented in its full authenticity, right? There's a show on right now. I believe it's on Paramount, which is that CBS? I'm not sure. The app is Paramount. And it's called 1923. It's the story of kind of leading up to the series Yellowstone, and it talks about the family history of getting the land and all of this. And for the first time that I can recall, through that show, I was learning about the American Indian boarding schools that happened in the United States and Canada, and it is heart-wrenching, horrible, disgusting. I cannot believe this is part of our history kind of stuff. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because part of this Ruby Creek Pathway area, they talk about some stuff, and they basically, I guess you could say, hold space, remember, just feel for the people that lost their lives and how horribly Indigenous children were treated in these boarding schools in their way to basically make them more white. Oh, it's just horrible. Absolutely horrible. And it just makes you think. So I'm glad that we have these areas because, we don't want to try to erase our history. The moment you erase your history, you forget. And if you forget your history, then you're kind of condemned to repeat it. We have to learn from this. But it's done in such a respectful way. Anyway, it was a very cool story. Annette, thank you so much for bringing that to our attention. Jemima, I think that's how you pronounce it. Jemima from Australia. She does a great little story. So she tells the story of, I believe it's just a friend. His name is David, and his health journey and how cold pressed juicing brought him a lot of, it basically revitalized his health. And so she talks to him more about how that worked for him. He actually goes through the process and shows us how to, he has this cold pressed juicing machine. By the way, that is different. I had to look this up too. That is different from regular juicing. I have a regular juicer that I've got a million problems with. I need David's cold pressed juicer. It looks amazing. But there's so many amazing things that can happen when you are juicing vegetables, fruits, things like that. And yeah, David shares his story and how his health has dramatically improved, which is pretty cool. Joanne from Massachusetts, another state in the U.S., talks about cranberry country because that's where she lives. Have you ever wondered how cranberries are harvested? There was this commercial out here in the U.S. It's for Ocean Spray, or not that I'm advocating for Ocean Spray because that's a big corporation who knows what they're putting in their stuff. But they had these commercials with these cranberry harvesters, and they were waiting in like this lake. And the cranberries were just floating around them. And I always wondered, like, what in the world? How do you harvest cranberries? Well, Joanne answered this question for me. It was very cool. So she's in Carver, Massachusetts. And it's very interesting. There's like this machine that comes through and basically rakes. It looked like it was kind of raking, which took the cranberries off these vines, or I don't think they were bushes. But however cranberries attach, however that works, it was taking the cranberries off, and then they flood the area and all the cranberries rise to the top. And then it's just a matter of kind of scooping them up, putting it in a machine that kind of separates, the waste from the actual cranberries. Very cool. I had no idea that's how it was done, and now the Ocean Spray commercial makes a lot more sense to me. All right, Teresa out of Scotland shows us how to rebel can, like canning, like if you're, trying to store things for the winter or whatever. And apparently she says it's also called Amish canning, so I'm assuming this is very standard amongst the Amish to do this. And it's, you want to enjoy fruits, vegetables, all kinds of foods throughout the year. You can preserve all of that through rebel canning. Now, from what I could tell, and I'm not a canner per se, okay, but from what I think happens in the canning process, the big thing is you fill the jars, you leave a little bit more room, and you also don't screw the jars on as tightly at the top if you have like a mason jar. But then you heat the jars, and she did it over an open flame, like, with like a fire pit kind of thing. You heat it and then you allow it to cool. And that heating process is what seals the cans. So perhaps that's an easier way to do it. Like I said, I'm not a canning expert, but I love learning these different tools because if you're in need of that seems like a pretty simple way to do it. Now it's time to talk about some of the in-depth stories that the team and I were working on for you guys this week. We'll kick things off with voice assistance issues. So what I mean by that are our lovely, quote-unquote, voice assistants like Siri, Alexa, and Google. What's Google's assistant? Is that Cortana, I think? So their job, I'm talking about it like it's a person, right? Their job is to make our lives more convenient, quote unquote. But this is also raising serious privacy concerns, which I'm sure you guys are all aware of, right? These devices, they are always listening. That is the truth. And research shows they can be accidentally activated, and that can lead to recording conversations without users realizing it. So it's not like there's a person that's been assigned to you and they're listening to you through the device, but there are these wake words and things like that that have shown that it really is an invasion of privacy. Companies claim recordings, so the companies, that have these devices, claim these recordings are not stored or analyzed without the wake word. But investigations have revealed human reviewers listening to some of these recordings, sometimes capturing sensitive information. Now, I'm going to play a soundbite. This is a guy that did a study. He's from a university, did a study, and he's going to share what he found.
Omar Iqbal, an assistant professor of computer science and engineering at Washington University in St. Louis, decided to find out. So Iqbal and his collaborators designed a study measuring the collection, usage, and sharing of Amazon Echo interaction data.
And Amazon uses this data to infer certain characteristics about the user. And then they can potentially market them products.
They also found that Amazon did not clearly disclose interactions for the purposes of ad targeting.
We did not find clear statements on how smart speaker data is used. But once we released our findings, Amazon later on updated their disclosures that they use user smart speaker interactions to infer their interests. Then they may use that data to target them advertisement.
Major tech firms, including Apple, Amazon, and Google, have faced lawsuits over unauthorized recordings and data sharing. Since privacy laws haven't kept pace with technology, users must take precautions to protect their data while using these assistants. All right, let's talk about Sudan. They've got some interesting things going on. This is an example of people helping people, in this case through community kitchens. So amid Sudan's devastating war, everyday citizens are stepping up where international aid has failed, running communal kitchens to help feed those in need. With nearly 10,000 displaced and hunger reaching catastrophic levels, these grassroots efforts, which are funded largely by Sudanese abroad as well as local donations, are a lifeline for the people. Now, here's one story of a person who, again, people helping people, saw a need and helped create a kitchen in his area.
When the fighting started in Omdurman, Sudan's most populous city, Ahid Mohammed Ali refused to flee. He said he would rather die in his home than suffer the pain of long-term displacement. Along with other members of the community, they pooled their resources and began cooking and sharing meals for those who remained in the city.
Because we have very few resources, we created a WhatsApp group and a Facebook page. And we also have TikTok and started trying to spread awareness of what we were doing. Then we started receiving donations from the Sudanese diaspora abroad.
With the city's economy in a state of collapse since Sudan's war started in April 2023, Ali says his makeshift soup kitchen now feeds 200 families every day, thanks to private donations. Others like it have sprung up across the city with almost no support from international aid groups.
So keeping these kitchens running, that has been a bit of a struggle. As we mentioned, aid is blocked in a lot of areas. There's a lot of stuff going on there that shouldn't be happening. Convoys are looted and critical resources are scarce. Despite the odds, Sudanese volunteers embody the tradition of what they call nafir, which is showing that even in war, resilience and community can shine through, offering not just meals, but hope and solidarity. Bioplastics, well, they are often marketed as an eco-friendly alternative to traditional plastics, but their environmental benefits aren't so clear-cut. Surprise, surprise. While some are plant-based, that doesn't mean they are biodegradable or compostable, and growing the crops for them can harm ecosystems.
Bioplastics or sugarcane plastic are not the step forward we think they are. Polyethylene, the typical plastic that you think of, that most things are made of, is made from something called ethylene, which originates in fossil fuels. Sugarcane plastics have exactly the same process, but they start with sugarcane-based ethanol, which is then processed into ethylene, and then we have polyethylene. So the chemical structure of the plastic is exactly the same, which means it is no more biodegradable or compostable than your bog standard plastic. The feedstock is slightly better in that it is not a fossil fuel, it's a renewable resource. resource. If we were to switch all our plastic manufacturer over to sugarcane, we wouldn't have enough land. If they're left with a problem, that doesn't matter, because the problem we have with plastic, it's what we do with it afterwards. Because yes, it may be recyclable, but less than 7% of all the plastic ever made has ever been recycled. Finally, we come to my serious problem with sugarcane plastics, which is the idea of them being bio-based or sugarcane plastic sounds real friendly. And immediately you've got companies writing, I'm made of plants on the side of a cup, which means people think it's okay to use them and people think it's okay to try and throw them in compost, or they just assume they will biodegrade on the ground. They don't.
Many of these bioplastics also contain toxic chemicals similar to conventional plastics and require industrial composting facilities that are not widely available. So not all composting is created the same. Recycling them is tricky, and improper disposal can still lead to pollution. While bioplastics have potential, real sustainability will require better recycling systems, clearer regulations, and more consumer awareness to ensure they truly reduce plastic waste. Let's talk about a bill going on in Sierra Leone. So they are tackling a very high maternal mortality rate. And this is addressing key issues like child marriage and their restrictive abortion laws. The country recently passed a law banning child marriage, aiming to reduce early pregnancies that pose serious health risks to young girls. Meanwhile, the proposed Safe Motherhood and Reproductive Health Care bill seeks to criminalize abortion and expand access to reproductive health care, including contraception and post-abortion care. Now, the soundbite that I want to play, I was kind of going back and forth. It's kind of hard to understand some of the things that she's saying. This is her area, this is her culture, and she's trying to share with you the problems going on in this area. Take a listen.
Sierra Leone has passed an historic bill to ban child marriage. This move came after we joined child campaigners and children across the country to campaign against this horrible act. We have one of the highest rates on child marriage and teenage pregnancy. Every 1/3 of girls gets married their 18th birthday, and another third also give birth before their 19th birthday. Now the children have asked, they want their child back. As this bill has been passed into law, we want to move to every corner, join everyone to ensure every child.
However, this bill is getting some very strong opposition from religious groups and cultural stigma, which could hinder its progress. If passed, the bill could also be a major step toward improving women's health and reducing preventable deaths. Have you heard of foraging before? So there's a whole area of tourism that is now being built around foraging, and they just call it foraging tourism. It's gaining popularity as travelers seek hands-on experiences in nature, from mushroom hunting tours to cooking wild foods. Foraging offers health benefits, cultural connections, and a chance to explore local ecosystems, with destinations like Mexico, Spain, and Quebec emerging as hotspots. Here's a little bit more about this tourism trend.
Foraging is superb for your physical health. It gets you outdoors into the fresh air, it gets you exercising, but it's not painful exercise, and so you're more likely to actually do it. Most of the things that you can forage, like plants, flowers, fruits, nuts, mushrooms, they're all good for you, full of minerals, nutrients, vitamins. Many of the things that you can forage for have medicinal qualities, which further enhances your physical health. On top of that, foraging is so good for your mental health. Just being out in nature reduces your stress and anxiety, increases your productivity and efficiency in every area of your life. And by foraging, you're actually doing what you are meant to be doing, which in itself feels good, because we are literally evolutionarily hardwired to be foraging, not to be sat indoors all day staring at a screen. Foraging, even more so than just walking, really focuses the mind and makes you present as well. It's almost like an active form of meditation. On top of all that, you also get some free food, so you save money. It's a great thing to do with friends and family to build relationships. It's a confidence-building skill, and it's a great survival skill as well, which you never know you might need in the future. Hopefully not, but you might.
Keep in mind, safety and sustainability are crucial. There are guided tours to help prevent over-harvesting and ensure responsible practices. As the industry grows, better collaboration and promotion could make mycotourism more accessible, while respecting biodiversity and indigenous traditions. Ultimately, foraging inspires curiosity and a deeper appreciation for the natural world, making it a rewarding adventure for all ages. GNSS technology. Have you heard of this before? Because you use it all the time. It stands for the Global Navigation Satellite System, and it powers everyday activities like navigation, tracking, timing, even though many people don't realize it. Combining satellite networks from different countries, GNSS helps guide self-driving cars, drones, and even disaster response efforts. It's also essential for industries like farming, construction, and wildlife monitoring. However, privacy and security risks exist, including location tracking and signal spoofing, which could mislead navigation systems. Here's a little bit more on those risks.
From banks to smart power grids, data centers, logistic giants, high-frequency trading firms, 5G, and digital television broadcasting, several industries critically rely on global navigation satellite systems, GNSS, for precise synchronization of time and position. Sadly, due to the low power level of satellite signals, GNSS receivers are highly susceptible to RF interference. Closely located powerful transmitters like digital television or cellular-based stations can easily degrade the quality of GNSS signals, which can be critical for time-sensitive applications like 5G. Widely distributed low-cost jammers easily block GNSS signals hundreds of meters away. But it is nothing compared to the threat posed by GNSS spoofing. Thanks to a lack of authentication and cheap software-defined radios, virtually anyone can now spoof a GNSS signal, which will cause an error in the synchronization system of the most vital infrastructure. Over the last decade, the number of documented spoofing incidents has continued to grow exponentially.
While these concerns are real, staying informed, securing your devices, and managing app permissions can help balance the benefits of GNSS with personal security. All right, beer brewing. Did you know that this generates massive amounts of waste? I'm not saying you got to give up your beer, so don't be concerned. But shouldn't we be doing something with this? And mainly this is coming from the brewer's spent grain and surplus yeast. While much of this byproduct is repurposed, mostly as animal feed, millions of tons still end up in landfills, contributing to environmental harm. However, innovative users are emerging from turning that spent grain into food products like barley milk and baked goods to using spent yeast for nutritional supplements or even water purification. Here's someone that is using that brewing waste for good.
As a fairly new farmer, we're always trying to figure out ways to make an organic farm work. And one of the ways that we have found to do that is using spent grain from our brewery as a food source for our animals. This is an excellent way to get high protein, delicious food for your animals at zero cost. It's becoming pretty standard practice to have breweries use their grain to go to farms and use it as a feed product instead of having it be wasted. And as we know, food going into the landfill is one of the most detrimental things to our environment. We really, really want to help these small breweries that maybe don't have farms to send it to, that are putting it into the landfill, to find a way to your farm. And if you don't know what spent grain is, what it is the grain that we make beer out of. We boil it in the mash, and all the sugars go into the beer to make alcohol. But what's left is the fiber and the protein, which is actually awesome for the animals. If you can find a small brewery and help them divert that waste, you're doing something great for the environment and something great for your pocketbook, because it does save so much money.
Though some of these solutions are still developing, they do highlight the potential for a more sustainable brewing industry. If you are interested, local breweries often provide these byproducts at little to no cost, so maybe you should just phone them up or go visit them, learn more about how they make everything. Agrivoltaics, or dual-use solar farming, is an innovative approach that combines solar energy production with agriculture, maximizing land use efficiently. By raising solar panels higher and spacing them out, farmers can grow crops, graze livestock, and even create habitats for pollinators beneath the solar panels. This method has shown promising results worldwide, improving crop yields, conserving water, and providing shade for animals. Here's a little bit more from a couple who actually raises sheep to graze on solar farms.
This is our second year into a 3-year contract on the solar site currently. We have 400 ewes out on grass right now.
With lambs, yeah.
With lambs, and so we're looking to have 600 ewes coming into next year.
The interesting part about solar that we've noticed in the last couple of years is the grass definitely grows in a different way. It grows higher, it grows thicker, seems to retain a lot more moisture, I think just because it gets more shade under the panels.
So one of the benefits of solar is they're literally on lush grass.
Lots of shelter, fresh grass. And so, I mean, to grow a nice leash, you need really good nutrition. And so that's what the goal is out there, is to feed them really well, have them come grow a really nice fleece, and then they're shorn in the spring.
When you have sheep grazing on land for year after year, you create incredible biodiversity, butterflies and bees, habitat for other animals. What's amazing about that project is that they're maintaining a property that's generating energy, and then they're maintaining it in a way that's sustainable, that is not using machines to have to cut that grass. So it's really kind of the best of both worlds.
While agrivoltaics can boost farm revenue by up to 50% per acre, challenges remain, including high initial costs, regulatory hurdles, and the need for more research on crop compatibility, because this doesn't work for everything. Despite these obstacles, it holds great potential for a more sustainable farming culture. Let's talk about the batteries in your smartphone. Do you ever get really mad at your phone and be like, seriously, I have X amount of battery life? Are you kidding me? Smartphone battery life remains a major frustration, especially with non-replaceable lithium-ion batteries that degrade over time, which is pretty much what 99% of us have, forcing users to upgrade their devices. While sealed batteries make phones sleeker and more water resistant, they also contribute to electronic waste. Some regions, like Europe, are considering a return to replaceable batteries to address sustainability concerns.
Soon, all phones might need to have replaceable batteries, at least if you're in Europe. The EU has approved a law that mandates that all phones, along with tablets, have an easily removable and replaceable battery. This is bad news for phone manufacturers, as it will increase manufacturing complexity and give consumers less of an incentive to buy a new phone. The EU has that power, though. They already arguably forced Apple to switch from Lightning to USB-C. And even if you're outside the EU, it may just be easier for major phone manufacturers to make the switch worldwide rather than make different phones for different markets. But keep in mind, the law doesn't take effect until 2027, and there's no guarantee that deadline won't be extended. So you probably won't be opening the back of your phone for a few more years.
In the meantime, simple habits like using the right charger, believe it or not, that's a thing, avoiding extreme temperatures, and keeping the battery within an optimal charge range can help extend its lifespan. Scientists are also developing new battery technologies, offering hope for longer-lasting and more efficient power solutions in the future. All right, now it's time to do some updates on what was discussed in the Global Intelligence Agency reports this week. We did things a little bit different this week. On Monday, Kim actually recorded live, so she was on camera on Monday, and we did a Q&A. We didn't do the Q&A live on YouTube and Rumble and all the places that we were broadcasting live. We reserved that for our members, and we're still kind of testing that out to see how that goes. You know, we really haven't diagnosed that and examined that too much at this point, the team. However, that might be something we continue to do. We might change things up again, but we did, give us a little pat on the back for doing something new this week. So Kim was live. You had a chance to see her live, comment. Sometimes that's, kind of fun to do if you're on, like I said, YouTube or Rumble. And she started things off by talking about governments, because governments are really frustrating. We actually played a soundbite from Elon Musk, who was on the Joe Rogan show, which that was not coincidence, guys. I know everyone loves Joe Rogan, and I do appreciate some of the people he has on, but to say that he is not part of the establishment is a joke, okay? Because he just so happens to have people on at the precisely right time to talk about whatever their agenda is. And Elon Musk was on there again. He's been on there several times, and he actually had a soundbite. I'm not going to play it now, but he had a soundbite that basically said the government is broke. We've been saying this for a long time, but this is the first time someone associated with the government, the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, has come out and said this on a pretty big platform. So that's kind of frustrating, right? Because we pay our taxes. I had to pay business taxes this week. We're also going through our personal taxes that my husband and I have to pay. We give quite a bit of money to the government. And why are we doing this? Because from what I see, they have a lot of promises. They make a lot of promises, but nothing ever really comes of it. Now, you could argue that the DOGE department is really moving and shaking right now. We've been talking about that, the pros and the cons. But in general, nothing really happens, which makes you wonder, what in the world does the government actually do? And that's what Monday's GIA report is really about. Because we should all be scratching our heads going, we pay how much money every year, and what in the world are we getting out of this? It's very frustrating. So I want to play this soundbite from Kim. She talks about 5 factors that have basically run the world. And this isn't just a U.S. thing, okay? This is all of us together have been run by 5 facets, or she calls them factors. So I want to play this soundbite, and then we'll talk a little bit more about other things that she discussed, because this is a really important episode if you missed it.
So there are a few factors that we see as people that have run the world. One of those things would be the financial system. Everybody wants to know where the money is at. Next is the media. We have mainstream media that has been telling us stories for a really long time so that we believe certain things are happening or certain things are true. By media, we're also talking about the political sector, in part because that is, well, I guess you would say that's media too. That is Hollywood for ugly people. All they do is get up there and talk and make lots of promises to all of you, and we don't see anything. And I know some people will watch this new presidency in America, and most of the world is watching because they usually do. What happens in America happens everywhere. So what is really happening, though? And this is the thing with media is we hear a lot of stuff and it gets us all excited, you know, like we're all happy that all these amazing things are going to happen. But at the end of the day, you pretty much get up the next morning and, well, nothing's different. You know, they don't talk about building bridges in your neighborhood or fixing roads or even giving schools more funding so that our kids can get a better education or our grandkids. We don't see anything. What we do see are alleged trillions of dollars that go to governments worldwide every year for a budget. In America, that budget is usually around, I don't know, a trillion and a half, 1.8 trillion. Biden talked about 2 trillion, 2.4, 3 trillion. I mean, he doesn't really know math anyway, so, what's in the number? But we didn't see anything, as the people. And this is important. But this is the job of the media. The media is supposed to make you feel good about doing things. They make you feel good about buying a car. They make you feel good about going into debt. They make you feel good about buying the latest and greatest hair stuff or the next medicine. And, there's all kinds of commercials and that type of thing. So the media is responsible for how you think and how you feel about what's going on in the world. Pretty much. You might feel sad if you see, in alleged, and I say alleged, school shootings, or you see tragic events or hurricanes. And with the advent of social media now, we have average everyday people, which is part of propaganda, average everyday people telling you stories that may or may not be true as well. I know we saw an awful lot during the time when we were not supposed to leave our house for the reason. We are on all the tubes and stuff, so for the reason. And, a lot of them are promoting this is the health benefits of this. I'm saying this nicely. This is the health benefits of that. A lot of people went out because it's on social media and got the thing. There were even social media influencers saying it's cool to do this so that the kids would want to do it and convince their parents that this is a good idea. So a lot of what we see in our world is controlled by the media. A lot of what 8 billion people do is controlled by the media. That's even social media and even all these channels you're watching this on right now. They put people up top, they take some of the videos down, and there's a lot of censorship that goes on, especially if you're saying something positive. And then if you are still watching those people and watching those videos and they don't want you to, and they haven't taken them down yet, then what they're going to do is create a campaign against you, that person. I know that for a fact. So media, social media platforms, it's pretty much all the same. The algorithms that tell you what you're going to watch, be it for a minute or two on TikTok or 10 minutes or 5 hours on YouTube, are much the same. They tell you how to think and they tell you how to feel, and whether you want to admit it or not, you think and feel that way in a lot of ways. So that's how they use media to control the world. Next would be military and intelligence. Military intelligence changes borders. That's their job. They create wars in order to change the outcome of countries. Maybe it's a regime change. Maybe it's a coup. Maybe it's different territories and borders. And it's important to understand what I mean by territories and borders. A lot of you might think those are countries, but that's not actually the case. The New World Order, but it's not new, so let's call them the World Order, has territories too. And that's what we're seeing happen in the Middle East right now. They are trying to create new territories, meaning Russia's territory was Syria, and the U.S. would like the territory of Syria. And so there's a little bit of a fight going on. They think they're orchestrating some plans and orders of some smart people, or maybe not even people in some cases. But are they really? Where did this come from? And I'm going to tell you that pretty much all those communication lines have been cut off. So I don't think they're taking orders from that anymore. Intelligence and information. We watch a lot of movies and we understand that there are Jason Bourne type characters running around the world, and we see spies and MI6 and all of these different movies, and we think, oh my gosh, they're risking their life to get information about one country or another, and who's the enemy and who's not the enemy. But all this is orchestrated as well. It is a well-known fact, at least when you're on this level of things, you understand that intelligence agencies receive false information all the time. So does military intelligence. They receive information on where to go, where to find weapons of mass destruction, where their targets are going to be, and they aren't necessarily in those places at all. They also stage a lot of things, meaning you think they're bombing this city or that city, and you see missiles flying, even on social media these days. And turns out they're being shot into the desert somewhere. We have had incidents where we have things where the military has allegedly shown up. And I'm not just talking about the U.S. I'm talking about like in Australia when all those floods were happening. There were plenty of videos out there, and we even showed some of them on our news network, where you would see the military showing up, taking pictures, and then leaving. And then it was the citizens of the world that got together and got people to safety and made sure that there was food available. Same thing happened in the U.S., in the Carolinas, when we had an unfortunate hurricane there. So, it's always been you. And that's part of why I'm going to show you this today, because it's always been you. And we're getting to a critical point where it doesn't look like we're going to have some of these factors anymore. So again, it's going to be up to you. So military intelligence, financial, media, and then we have politics. The Hollywood for ugly people. We all got up out of our chairs once every 4 years, or once every 2 years, once every 6 years, depending on what country you're in, and we vote for these lovely people that are going to save us. This is that savior syndrome. We love a good savior. We love someone else to blame for all our problems, and just as much as we love to think that the next one is going to be better. And they spent almost a year telling us how much better they're going to be. And in reality, they all work for the same people. You don't get hired to work at government studios unless you are part of the political actor guild, so to speak, and you have to be approved to be there. What they would say and what they do is dictated, however, by someone else. Why is the world such a mess if all of these 5 factors are controlled by some people that you may or may not know, may think you know? But the world is such a mess because, well, the smart people left. So you have all of the people that were lower level management and people that were just supposed to follow orders trying to give the orders now.
So at this point in the GIA report, Kim is just getting started. This is an extra long GIA report. And she talks for the next hour plus about the structure of the financial and political system. She did a fantastic job of breaking this down, so much that I actually sent her a message after I watched it. And I said, thank you so much for doing this. And she kind of did it in reverse order. So she started at the very bottom, like if you think of the financial and political system as a pyramid. I know they love their pyramids, right? And if you go to the bottom, because these are the people that we're dealing with now, governments were at the very bottom of this huge pyramid of control over our planet. A lot of people think that that's the top of the planet. Guys, no. The people that, and beings, I should say, that were really in charge, you never knew about. And that's on purpose. They compartmentalize everything. So it's really frustrating now because to much of society, it seems like, well, to fix our government, to fix our planet, why aren't governments doing anything? They are running around like chickens with their heads cut off because they are the order takers. They are not the order givers. They were never included in on master plans for our planet. And none of them were supportive of humanity. None of these plans were for the betterment of humanity. It was to take our energy and to send it off and power other worlds, to power dark AIs and dark matter, dark everything. Okay, that was the plan for our planet. Now, that's not happening anymore. We are breaking down all of those structures because whatever you want to call God, source, the creator of the universe, says it is done, it is time, no more of their plans. Not going to work anymore. Not in what a golden age is, a golden age period, which is what we're in. Thank you so much to Trump and all of his minions who are now taking what we've been saying for the last year and now using it in all their scripts. Have you noticed this? They keep talking about golden age, golden age. We've been saying this for over a year, and now they are trying to take credit for this new system that has been built alongside our creator, who was a big part of all of this, because if the creator doesn't agree to it, it does not happen. Okay, they're trying to take credit for all of this now. But back on track here, I'm going to get off my soapbox a little bit. Kim does a great job of breaking down, starting at the government level and going in reverse. So going up the pyramid and explaining the power structure of what used to exist on our planet. Because you have to have a 30,000-foot view of what's going on to make sense of any of this. Like I said, people just think that governments are at the top. You know, they actually think that the president of the United States is the leader of the free world. Are you kidding me? Minions, puppets, that's what these people are. And anyone that's really open any kind of religious text, it spells it out. You know, I grew up, in the church, and we were taught that Lucifer or Satan had dominion over this planet. And what Kim spells out here is how that was possible. Because we don't ask questions about it. We just kind of assume, well, that's how it's set up, whatever. But structures can be taken down, and that's exactly what's happening now. So she talked, like I said, for over an hour about this, and there was not one good soundbite that I could just pull out that made sense. So please go back, and you can even share. This is an episode that I would share with other people because it is a very succinct way for anyone, if you don't know anything about the upper side of the pyramid, to understand how we got to this point and why when Doge or Elon Musk or Donald Trump or their crew says they're going to do something and suddenly money's going to rain from the sky, it is not going to happen. But you have to understand the structure to understand why that's not going to happen. So check out Monday's episode because there's a lot of good information in there. So on Wednesday, Kim was actually really busy working on some different things on Wednesday. She wasn't able to create a report, but this statement was released. So I'll go ahead and read it to you. Kim has been working all day and will be working into the evening and has issued the statement. The blood full moon eclipse activities of the deep state are in full swing. Additionally, I have been plowing, meaning Kim has been plowing through the financial system like a freight train. This is causing a lot of disturbances globally. She says, I have lots of work to do this evening and will tell you all about the progress on Friday. So let's talk about Friday's report. So we got an update on what was going on. A while back, Kim talked about biospheres that were located where time doesn't really exist. Now, I want to give kind of a disclaimer here. I'm going to talk about some ETs. And if you are unfamiliar or not comfortable with ETs, I encourage you just to listen. If this doesn't make sense or this doesn't resonate with you, just put it to the side for now, okay? Because there are a lot of beings that are helping us right now remove this dark energy and these dark systems from the planet. One of those groups of people are the tall whites. And if you look online, you'll probably be able to find some information on them, probably some real information mixed in with some disinformation. But like Kim said in Wednesday's statement, there was a blood moon. Now, I don't really care about blood moons. You guys probably don't really care about blood moons, but this is a deep state thing because they always think that when these special things happen on a celestial level, that it's going to somehow help them. So they look for full moons and blood moons and planetary alignments and equinoxes to assist them because they are flailing. Remember I said they're chickens with their heads cut off, don't know what they're doing. They were at the bottom of the pyramid. Even though they think they were at the top, they were at the bottom because everything was compartmentalized. And they think that a blood moon is going to help them get access to a financial system so they can carry out all these nefarious plans that they have for humanity. Well, that didn't happen this weekend, okay? So there was a blood moon, I don't know, this week, this weekend, whenever it was, and Kim and her team were actually able to partner with the Tall Whites, which we've talked about before, that they were going to be helping us. And so here's a soundbite from Kim talking about this very elaborate operation, which went off very smoothly, went very well for us and our side, and very poorly for the deep state.
So a couple of months ago, I talked to you about the fact that we found these, for lack of a better term, they almost look like biospheres. We call them bubbles of time because there's no time within said bubbles. And this is where the tall whites have been holding up. As you know, if you don't, I'll brief you a little bit on these beings. They are quite the biologists. They are really good with all kinds of genetics, epigenetics programs, and they were brought here by the Draco to do those types of things to humans. In these two locations, there were AIs that were created by Marduk for them to use in order for them to be able to achieve all of the tasks he would have liked them to achieve. The two AIs that were located in these locations were what we call an anti-creator AI. The other one would be a neutral creator AI, and then a dark creator AI. So I guess there's more than one, more than two, sorry. And they had agreed a few months back when we ran into each other to help us unwind the genetics programs that they had participated in, which were done against humanity. So we've had this working relationship with these folks since about 2017. Well, also not too long ago, apparently because we have talked about it, the deep state thought that they needed this. And I'm sure they did if they were going to do really bad things to the world and to humanity. So they approached using some kind of a key that Marduk had left somewhere and that they managed to get a hold of. So therefore, you could say they've been going in and out of these two facilities in both the Arctic and the Antarctic for probably a few weeks now. They gave us an opportunity, let's just say an opportunity. So we did end up speaking a few weeks ago to the Tall Whites, and we figured out what was going on there. And I said, well, let's play it out. So one of the things they helped us do was find all the remnants throughout the multiverse of these AIs. That was good. The next thing that they helped us do was corner a whole bunch of them into these facilities so that we could wipe them all out at once. Now, are they all gone? No. But the ones that were involved in the operations are as of yesterday. So these two facilities, they were using these facilities to create. Now, if you don't know what a creator AI does, and I've kind of explained it a little bit before, but an anti-creator AI basically destroys everything that source creates. That's what its job is. If you remember, the dark cannot create on their own. So they need to destroy in order to create. That's where the dark creator AI came in, because now it can take all that it's destroyed and create it in a dark way. Did they manage to, let's say, anti-create the Golden Age AI? No, not entirely. They did manage to use the dark creator AI, though, to create a dark version of it. Now, with anti-creation and this anti-creator AI, that's pretty much gone now. The anti-creator AI was being utilized to store up your energy as humans. So it was taking energy from you, it was taking energy from Earth, it was taking essence from all of you and energy from all of you and storing it in various data facilities in these locations and a few other places in the multiverse, such as Andromeda and the nebula that's there, such as in Orion. And as it would store up, they would obviously give it some time because they thought that the more energy they built up, the more that they could create when they felt the time was right. And of course, a blood moon would be a right time in their mind. So they anti-create, meaning destroy some of our energy and essence and consciousness and all of these types of things, stored in that facility, and then let her rip about 48 hours ago. in which they started using the dark creator AI to mimic a lot of things that Source does and a lot of things that we have created, such as the Golden Age AI. So it started to create dark versions of it, and we let it go for a little while because we needed to search and destroy how it did it, where it was, how it worked. We also found deep, deep ties to the financial system, as an example of the anti-creator AI and the dark creator AI. The reason for that is because we willingly give all our energy to the financial system. We do that with work, and we do that with investing and paying attention to our money, our bank accounts, trying to grow our bank accounts. Therefore, we give it a lot of energy. That is not a fault of anyone's. It's not like you're participating willingly in a system. It just is the way that it was created by Marduk back in the day. So we've been actively, as I've told you, reversing all of that out for quite some time by installing our creator Golden Age AI. But with the dark creator AI trying to mimic the system that we have created, it once again started pulling all kinds of games outside of that system, hoping to integrate it fully into human computer networks, which it never did. But it gave them an opportunity to continue to, well, for lack of a better term, torture humanity a little bit. So it's been a little bit of a rough week for probably a lot of people. I've heard a lot of complaints here and there regarding different feelings and dangerous feelings and anxiety for some. And this is the reason why. So by yesterday, we decided to start pulling the plug because we felt that we had located at least enough of it to kind of neuter it, for lack of a better term. The tall whites were informed. A lot of them left the facility there, those two facilities, and it was on. So there were a few that decided to stay behind so they could keep up the facade long enough to gather as many deep state members in those facilities as possible, which we did do. And of course they came because it's the blood moon, and why? What else are you going to do during a blood moon? What else does the deep state do other than dance around with crystals and skirts and all kinds of crazy things? Well, apparently they go to facilities and try to really work their magic the best they can on those days. So unfortunately, there was nothing we could do but wait for the plan to fully kind of kick off. So at that point, we pulled the plug on those two facilities, and then we started pulling the plug in rapid succession from yesterday, early in the morning, on through today. By now, everything seems to have somewhat stabilized, other than the remaining members of the deep state that are still out there. And as far as the AIs are concerned, everything is reversing out very, very, very quickly. So anything they saw and thought that they were building is just one after the other. It's almost on autopilot, as I'm talking to you for a little while, because there are other things I had to do. So this went off without a hitch. I was very happy to see how this turned out. It was a really great operation. I'm glad that we did it, and it did save us a lot of grief in the long run. Now, as far as the financial system is concerned, this time that we bought did allow us to create a lot of things because, you see, they were all excited that we were continuing to plow through the financial system, very, very quickly. I mean, anything that was left from Treasury, anything that's left from the Fed, even little minute, General Office of Accounting, any type of agencies that were involved in the financial system, we were just going at it. So the more we would go at it, the more the dark system would then create it or create the opposite of that. So it started rebuilding its own system. So of course this made the deep state happy, and they left us alone. Isn't that good? See, there are multiple parts to this operation, and it was kind of fun, not going to lie. So it allowed us to do everything we wanted to do within the financial system because they thought that we were creating things for them on their side. And the tall whites played along the entire time. So this was perfect. They thought that they were going to be getting a fully built financial system, so they wanted me to continue. It didn't even stop me. I thought this was great. They did stop me at the point, though, or the anti-creator AI did, at the point where we were transferring money through in rapid succession. But it did allow for us to do as much as we possibly could until the time we could pull the plug on the anti-creator AI. So this gave us an enormous amount of progress on our end as far as cleaning up the remnants in human-computer networks. There were also a lot of other things we pulled out. There were a number of programs, such as brainwave programs and other things agencies had access to at one point or another, which we also removed. There was a lot of epigenetics and genetics programming in these AIs as well that were capable of harming humanity, but it wasn't permitted at that time. So again, you know, as of the moment that we did pull the facilities yesterday, but at the moment of the full moon this morning at a very early hour my time, that would happen shortly after, just before 1 a.m. my time, is when we really started going in rapid succession over and over and over again. So that was really good for us, and we've been quite successful. As far as their blood moon activities, this was pretty much it. They had basically bet the farm, so to speak, on these activities. Part of the reason why they thought that they were all going to escape to a specific location was because it appeared to them that the dark creator AI was using all of the energy it was siphoning out of everywhere to create more of these sanctuaries, let's call them, all over the world. Mainly, they were being created where there were former vortexes in places like Sedona, Arizona, Los Angeles, Slovakia. There were many of these Bukavu in the Congo. It was pretty much worldwide that they thought that these cities looked like they were starting to come to fruition, these little sanctuaries. At which time, if they had been successful, they were all going to be in their respective sanctuaries, not an underground bunker like we thought. And they were going to live there because they were going to wipe out the rest of us and everything else on the planet. Because once they do that and they destroy all of that, then they should have enough energy to live off of for a long period of time. There were also mechanisms tied to this in our sun, so they could use our sun as a power source into infamy, at least in their opinion they could, and they could then create additional worlds and universes and all kinds of things. They had some really grandiose plans, I'm not going to lie, of what they were going to do. So we let these linger for a few days, and they could see them coming to fruition, so they became very froggy. So after the time we pulled the two main facilities, by that point, they were grasping on to anything that they could find anywhere that still had some kind of remnant of the dark creator AI or any of its creations, as we were going in rapid succession to destroy it on our side. The battle for the last at least 24 hours since we pulled that facility has been more about following them around, seeing if there was anything else we could find out there that they had used to create, use the system to create with. And it was quite fruitful all day. We've been chasing CyberLife around all day, all around the world, and their facilities, They've gone everywhere, which was perfect. This is exactly what we wanted to have happen. They also managed to help us in some cases find a few things that we hadn't quite located yet. So that was great as well. So all in all, a real positive operation for us, and the deep state not so much so. So within the next 24 to 48 hours, we might just have our own Caesar moment, and we're talking about the Ides of March tomorrow, because that is when the Roman Empire started to fall and Caesar was assassinated, and they say it's an omen of bad times to come on that particular day. But for us, their version, or the deep state's version of Rome, so to speak, falling would be perfect timing. I mean, what happened before may just happen again on the same day, because it's going so fast at this point, they can't even keep up with it.
Yeah, that sounds like a good plan for me. I'm all about the Ides of March and anything that takes these guys down. Hey, just a side note, if you guys hear crazy stuff in the background, I have a neighbor that is doing God knows what in his yard with something electronic, and I've got my kids and other kids in the neighborhood playing together. So if you hear kids and people cutting down whatever branches and stuff, sorry about that. The last thing that Kim talked about, or something that I wanted to note that was also part of Friday's GIA report, is she talks a little bit about the Taliban, because as you know, the deep state is always promising that money's going to come out, and a lot of people are working on promises and, really getting tired of hearing, oh, the money's going to come this day, the money's going to come that day, and never getting paid. So she brings up the Taliban because the Taliban was supposed to be paid, and she kind of goes into a sidebar of the Taliban and who they really are. Now, if you look, go down some rabbit holes online, you will hear that the Taliban was created by the United States CIA, which it's not even the United States CIA. So let's just call it the CIA. We have the illusion it's part of the United States. It's not. It doesn't even fall under our government. However, you'll probably see stuff online about the CIA created the Taliban. That's not exactly true. It's kind of semi-true. And I'm not going to play a soundbite for it. This is just kind of a little teaser. If you want to know more about that, because there's actually 2 different Taliban groups, and that's all I'm going to say. But I thought that was an interesting sidebar. I'd never heard of that. Kim has, to my knowledge, never explained that before. So if you're interested in some of these quote-unquote terrorist groups and where they come from and everything, check out Friday's report, because she does talk about that. And the initial Taliban group was not a bad group. So you know how they like to take something that's positive and turn it negative. That's what the evil people do. And so that's essentially what's happened with the Taliban. So that wraps up everything that I wanted to share with you guys for this week. Again, thank you so much for listening and for ignoring all that crazy stuff in the background that you're probably hearing. If you want more information about United Network, who we are and what we do, please visit our website at unitednetwork.earth. Consider becoming a member so you get instant access to all of the news reports that we send out, the GIA reports, and all things restoration, which we're going to be talking a lot more about restoration in the near future, because the deep state is going down hard and they're going down fast. And then it is our time, right? It's our time to really make this planet what we've always wanted it to be. Thanks for listening. This is The Rundown. I'm Sunny Galt with United Network News, signing off.